Hi, I'm Jessica with Assurance Real Estate Acquisition, and today I have with me here Barbilee Hemmings. She's our expert right now with the health and wellness of the mind and body. So Barbilee, as an entrepreneur yourself, how do you take care of your health-wise, mind and body, since as an entrepreneur, usually you burn yourself out just trying to do everything all the time?
Right, because an entrepreneur is the CEO, the CFO, the secretary, the janitor, and everything, right? That's the definition of entrepreneur, right? So it's interesting because I've been doing this for, actually my first entrepreneurial gig was when I was 12 years old.
Okay.
And my brother was 16 at the time, 17 at the time. And they put an ad out for a newspaper delivery in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And I'm like, sweet, you can be 12 and get a newspaper route. So I decided to get a newspaper route. And my brother was like, you're too young and you're a girl, blah, blah, blah. And so I put in my application and everything. And the guy calls me and he says, well, with a name like Barbilee, it sounds like you're a girl. I'm like, totally a girl. He says, oh, you have to be 14.
Wow.
And I'm like, no, the ad says 12-year-old. And he says, no, sorry, if you were a boy, it could be 12, but as a girl, you have to be 14. So my first entrepreneurial experience was I went to my brother, who was 16 at the time, and I said, I want to use your name, your presence, I'll do the work, and I'll pay you a percentage of what I earn. And he's like, okay, what do I got to do? I said, you got to meet this guy, pretend you're going to take the route, I'll do the work, and I'll pay you a little bit, but I get the most of the money. He goes, okay. Who's not going to say yes? So as I understand now that's leverage. And that's what business owners, entrepreneurs, that's the number one thing, is what kind of resources are available to them.
Right. So
when I was 12, I had an older brother who could, pretend to take the route. Now you're not going to publish this somewhere where I'm going to get, thrown in jail for lying when I was 12 years old or anything. But that was the first time, when I started being an entrepreneur. And I watched my mom. My mom's an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And she's owned everything, like she's had vending companies. She's a taxi driver, right? She was a taxi driver pretty much my entire life. And I watched her work and work and work and work and work and never had time for the kids. And, my whole thinking is if you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to create a life for yourself, not steal yours away, right? So knowing this and having had some experiences and whatever, there's a course that I did quite a few years ago called the Millionaire Mind Intensive with Peak Potentials. Okay. So T. Harv Eker gets in the front of the room and he's talking about money mindset. And he talks about how if we take our all of our money, like let's say every dollar that comes to us, and it has a job, right? It's allocated a job. Sure. And so 50% goes here, 10% goes there, and so on. So he taught us this system that I started using as money management, and as my business, got to be an actual business and not just a hobby that I tried to get paid for, right? Because that's where most entrepreneurs are. I started looking at, okay, where's my time being spent? Because my business is out of my home, right? So you can imagine being in the home, and my office is in the home, and my children are in the home, and my dirty dishes are in the home, and my laundry's in the home, right? So there has to be some sort of balance, some sort of harmony. This whole, because, it's 8 o'clock at night, kids are awake, cadets, what am I going to do? I'll work, right? Because it's in the home, right? I walk 4 steps, I'm in my office. Maybe I should clean my office, maybe, and all this kind of stuff. So what I did is this system, this money management system that I learned, I started putting to task management. Now people say, oh, you mean time management. I says, I can't manage time. Have you ever tried to manage time?
We all have 24 hours.
Right, that's it. We have 24 hours. I don't have any more than you. It's how we use that time.
Sure.
We can never manage it. We can't slow it down. We can't speed it up. But we can manage our activities within that. So as an entrepreneur, I looked at how much time am I spending on my business? How much time am I spending on play? I asked you that question when we came in today. What do you do for fun, Jessica? Right? So it's this piece about keeping everything balanced, everything in harmony. So the system that I use is 50% of my time is spent on business. So let's say, for example, what time do you wake up in the morning?
I wake up at 5:30.
5:30, okay. So I like to sleep in. I get up at 7. okay? Because I work from home, so I don't have to drive anywhere for my business, right? And what time is your typical day end? Like you're kind of done, your brain is done.
10 p.m.
10 p.m., yeah, totally. Mine's sometimes done at like 9, right? But if I kind of look at and say, okay, so from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, right? This is my typical day, right? Because then I'll go, well, that gives me about 8 hours of sleep, because we should be sleeping 8 hours. And that's the first part of wellness, right? How to keep ourselves on track. So sleeping for 8 hours. So that other 16 hours of the day, what are we doing? Well, some entrepreneurs still have their job, right? They still have to go to their job, or they're building their business, right? In that other 16 hours. So how do you break down that 16 hours to stay healthy, both in your body and in your mind?
And what made you think about focusing so much on health? Like, what stopped you from being like all the other entrepreneurs who just kept working?
Well, when your body tells you to stop because it took you out because you're sick, you don't have a choice.
Okay, so you got to that point.
Yeah, I totally got burnt out.
Yeah,
now. Yeah. Well, I was teaching and I was running a business at the same time.
Okay.
Trying to be better.
Yeah, so you were like where most entrepreneurs are, where they're just burning themselves out.
Right.
So what's the transition that you had to go through to get to where you are now?
A lot of mindset change in the sense of, okay, what works for me and what doesn't, right? And I just learned and I just watched and I read a lot of books and I went to seminars and I spent a lot of money trying to learn, you know. But the bottom line is I had to figure out what works for me and in my family situation, right? I have two children. I'm married. So there's a whole other dynamic that's required there as well.
Okay. So if you were to take the key points out of the seminars and books you've read, what would be the 5 top things you would suggest for an entrepreneur who's starting to feel the burnout and how to prevent that from happening and start to live a healthier life while maintaining what they want in their business?
Yeah, there's not 5, there's 1.
Okay.
And number 1 is pay yourself first, right? Whether it's financially, physically, spiritually, you have to take care of yourself first. Okay. Nobody else can get from you when you're dry, right? If you imagine like those champagne fountains, you know, they do at weddings and stuff, where do they pour the champagne?
At the top.
At the top. That's me. I'm at the top of this pyramid, right? So how do I help everybody else? I make sure that I'm full, right? Then people can get from my reserves, whatever's overflowing, right? So energetically, right? How much energy does somebody have? Well, if I'm,
everybody else,
you know, everybody else around me goes, you know, we have a thing in my house. If mommy's not happy, nobody's happy. It's just kind of the way it works.
Yeah.
But it's the same in all situations, right? You tend to feed off the energy around you. So you have to also take care of yourself first. So pay yourself first. So take care of yourself, number 1.
In what way? Like physically, mentally, spiritually, any other ways?
Emotionally, all of it, yeah. So we have 4 modalities of the body, right? So to pay yourself first emotionally means, you know, actually look at yourself in the mirror and go, I like you. You know,
it's positive.
Yeah, totally. Right. So just, you know, just having that understanding that I am special, right? And others will see that if I see that.
Yeah, and this should obviously be done daily.
Oh, totally. And
hourly.
Sometimes hourly, depends, absolutely. You know, depends on what someone's lifestyle is like, especially if someone's still in their job, right, their job. And, you know, job just overbroke you. Like that. So, you know, if they're in this negative situation, I always say things like, well, you know, one of my topics that I talk about is take time to pee. Right? And, you know, you're like, I wonder what that means. and actually, it's really simple. It's taking that 5 times a day, you know, 4 or 5 times, because that's typically the time we spend in the bathroom. And we actually, as women, we sit down. Wipe the seat, right? We sit down, right? Take a breath.
Mhm.
Don't, try and rush it, and oh my gosh, I gotta get back, and what if my phone rings, and don't be Facebooking. I read a statistic that 76% of Facebook stats are updated in the bathroom. Don't do that,
Wow.
okay? Don't take your phone in there with you. It's a crazy stat. Actually, Facebook posted it. Anyway, but actually take the time to pee. When you're done, wash your hands. Turn on the water.
That's a given.
No, but it's not. And wash them, because some people just run the water, quick. I'm saying turn on the water, let it get warm, get the bubbles, play with the bubbles, right? Just like kids. Have you ever seen a kid play? Like it takes them 20 minutes to wash their hands, right? That's why they're so happy, because they've taken that time, So play with the bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have any worries or concerns or something bothering you, pop the bubbles. Go, that one's done. That one's done. Whatever. Sing in the bathroom. It's got great acoustics. Yeah, can you imagine?
There are obviously many
Right.
ways to take care of yourself emotionally in that sense.
Yeah.
So basically it's just taking time out of your day, rest up, don't think about anything, leave your phone away, and just look at yourself and tell yourself how awesome you are, right?
Well, yes, and surround yourself by other people who tell you you're awesome. But mean it. Don't
Always
pay
nice.
them to do it. Not the ones that you pay to do it. The ones that do it willingly. Right? So friends, family, like these people that you actually like to hang out with. And sometimes it's not family, I'm just saying. But that's why we get to choose our friends. But it's, having that support system. So that also feeds you emotionally. And that also falls into the spiritual aspect.
Okay.
Because if you find a spiritual community of like-minded
Mhm.
that, kind of have the same beliefs as you or have the same basic understanding,
Yeah.
then you go, okay, so these people I can feed off of as well.
Okay.
Because now we can have real conversations,
Right.
right? And it's not just going and listening to something and leaving, but it's actually being engaged in a community.
Okay.
So that's to feed yourself spiritually as well.
Okay, so for emotional, it's to have positive affirmation, surround yourself with supportive people. And then for the spiritual side, it's surrounding yourself in a community that's thinks the same as you.
Yeah,
do
like-minded.
spiritual.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the next one was physically.
Yeah. So feeding your body.
Mhm.
Okay, number one. We are raised from day one, and you've heard it, and finish my sentence, breakfast is the,
Most important meal of the day.
okay? And how many people skip breakfast?
Many people. Too
Okay,
many.
or wait, maybe it's even worse because they line up in one of those drive-throughs where they order what I consider crap, C-R-A-P, caffeine, refined sugars, additives, and preservatives, right? Doesn't matter what comes through the window, it's all crap.
Mhm.
And they do that thinking that, well, at least I did that.
Okay.
And what they don't realize is it's worse for their body than skipping some days, some of the stuff that they're putting in. But definitely feeding the body first and exercise. And exercise doesn't mean going to the gym and pumping iron and sweating and, whatever. That's really icky gross to me because I don't
It's not
like
for
germs.
everyone.
No, I don't like the germs in there. And people, they take the little cloths and they don't really wipe it down. And then they use the same cloth on each piece of equipment. To me, it's not a good, anyways, that's just me. But it doesn't mean exercise isn't always pumping iron or running a marathon. Exercise can be cleaning your house, right? Vacuuming, playing with the kids, doing something on the Wii, whatever, going for
So
a walk.
basically just being physically active.
Just move.
Just get off the couch and
Yeah.
do something.
Just
Even
move.
if it's just simply walking around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been sitting next to one of the things that I do is when I work at home, right, and I know I've got like 4 or 5 hours that I'm working, so I'll set my timer, and every 45 minutes, I take a 15-minute break.
Okay, and what
Right.
do you do during that 15 minutes?
Whatever, I leave my office, so I go and do something. Sometimes it's, I recently, because I haven't had a lot to do, outside of my office kind of things, and keep my house pretty clean, is I play on the Wii.
Okay.
I'll put on a couple songs on the dance, or I'll do a couple of yoga things. I really like the hula hoop. The super hula hoop, yeah. And that's good, and I'm starting to be noticed. Just saying. But it's again, it doesn't have to be huge and structured, and we were just talking, we just came from the book club, and we were just talking about it doesn't have to always be a checklist of everything to do.
Yeah, it's just whatever
Right?
you feel
Just
like.
do
it.
something that feels good. Back in the 60s, if it feels good, do it.
Okay.
Right? Same idea.
That's before my time.
Yeah, mine too, but you've heard the expression.